Two men cursed her, one cursed by darkness, one bound by duty, a vampire who waited lifetime for her, and a hunter who died to protect her. But when the moon turns red, Elara must decide who deserved her heart or her power. It was past midnight when Elara heard the sound, a slow haunting hum that drifted through her window like a forgotten lullaby. At first she thought it was the wind, but the melody had a shape, rhythm, intention. It felt alive. Outside the night stretched endlessly. The streets were empty, drenched in the pale glow of bleeding silver moon. A thin fog coiled around the trees, and the wind whispered her name, as though the darkness itself wanted her to step outside. She should have stayed in bed, but curiosity, that dangerous, irresistible spark, pulled her out. Wrapping a shawl around her shoulders, Elara quietly opened the door. The cold air rushed in, sharp and biting, smelling faintly of rain and roses. Her bare feet brushed against the damp earth as she stepped into the quiet street. The humming grew clearer now, coming from the old chapel at the end of the lane. Abandoned for years, its windows shattered, its wall covered in ivy and time. Her heart pounded, but her feet moved on their own, and that's when she saw him. He stood beneath the dying streetlight, tall, still as a shadow carved in moonlight. His skin glowed, faintly pale, almost translucent, as though he were carved from frost. His eyes burned red, not bright but deep like fire trapped in ice. He turned slowly, as though he had known she was there all along. His gaze locked onto hers, and in that instant the air shifted, colder, heavier, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. The stranger smiled, soft, deliberate, revealing the faintest glimpse of pain. "You should have walked alone," he said in voice smooth and calm, like silk poured through darkness. Elara froze, her voice trembled when she managed to whisper, "Who are you?" He tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was a long-lost secret. "Someone who's been waiting a long time for you." The words made her stomach twist. She stepped back, but the ground felt unsteady, as if the night itself wanted to hold her still. The man, or whatever he was, took a step closer. The fog curled around his boots like living smoke. "You don't remember me, do you?" he said softly. "But I remember you. Every lifetime, every time the moon turns red." Her pulse thundered in her ears. "You are insane," she stammered. "I don't even know you." "Not yet," he murmured, a strange sadness flickering in his crimson eye. "But you will." Before she could respond, a new sound shattered the silence, a heavy, deliberate click. A man's voice, deep and commanding, cut through the air like a blade. "Step away from her, vampire!" The word vampire hit her like a slap. From the darkness behind her, another figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered, his boots crunching against the gravel. His presence filled the street with a different kind of energy, hot, alive, protective. He held a silver blade that shimmered under the moonlight, its edge gleaming dangerously. His eyes steel gray, fierce and unyielding, locked onto the pale stranger with lethal precision. The vampire's lips curved into a faint smile. "Ah, the hunter." The man's jaw tightened. "You know what I am, then you know what come next." "Always the same threats," the vampire said, almost amused. "You hunters never learn. You can't kill what's already damned. Watch me." The hunter's voice was steady, confident. Elara's eyes darted between the two men. One darkness incarnate, the other light forged into steel. The air crackled between them, silent war that seemed far older than her understanding. "Stop!" she shouted. "Both of you, what's happening? Who are you people?" Neither answered. The vampire's gaze softened for a fleeting second. "You should have come out tonight," he said, almost gently. "It's too soon." The vampire's name was Lucien, the hunter's name was Damian, and both of them wanted the same thing, Elara. The air between them crackled with danger, thick with centuries of hate and something else, something unspoken. Elara stood frozen, her breath shallow, her pulse wild. She could feel their eyes on her, like twins storm about to collide. Damian's grip tightened around his silver blade, the metal catching the dim moonlight. His stance was steady, trained, lethal. Every muscle in his body screamed readiness. Lucien, on the other hand, looked almost relaxed. His expression carried that eternal calm only immortal possessed, the kind of passions born from lifetime or watching mortals live and die. But his eyes, crimson and burning, told another story, one of hunger, pain, and obsession. "You shouldn't be here," Damian growled, and yet Lucien replied softly, "Here I am." The night tends to draw us both, doesn't it? Damian stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You won't touch her." Lucien's smile was slow, taunting. "She belongs to no one, Hunter." Then his gaze shifted from Damian's blade to Elara's trembling head. "But you can't protect her from what she is." Elara blinked, confusion twisting in her chest. "What I am? What are you talking about?" Lucien tilted his head, his expression softening in a way that almost looked human. "You have felt it, haven't you?" he whispered. "The dreams, the vision, the way the night calls your name." Elara's heart skipped. He was right. The dreams, the strange flashes of faces she didn't know, battles she never fought, the voice that whispered her name in forgotten tongues, they would haunted her for months. "What do you know about me?" she demanded. Lucien's eyes darkened with something between awe and longing. "You are not just human, Elara. You are Lightborn, the last of your kind, the bloodline of those who once ruled over both vampires and hunters. Your ancestors were the balance between light and dark. They kept the world from tearing itself apart." His eyes echoed like ancient prophecy. The revelation struck like lightning. Her knees felt weak, her mind spinning. All the strange moments, the times she hailed too fast, the way sunlight never burned her yet moonlight seemed to awaken something inside. They all come crashing back. Damian's jaw clenched. "That's impossible," he muttered. "The Lightborn were wiped out centuries ago. I have read every record. There are none left." Lucien turned toward him, his tone chillingly calm. "Not all." The silence that followed was heavy. Even the wind seemed to hold his breath. Elara took a small step back, eyes darting between the two men. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why now?" Lucien's expression softened again, almost tender. "Because the balance is breaking. The world grows darker each century. Hunters kill without mercy, vampires feed without restraint. Only a Lightborn can restore the balance, and your blood carries that power." Damian shook his head. "You are lying. You just want her for yourself." Lucien's gaze flickered toward him, a dangerous gleam in his eyes. "Don't mistake desire for deceit, Hunter. I could have taken her long ago, but I waited because she deserves to choose." "Choose?" Damian spat. "Between what? Death and damnation?" Lucien took a step forward, his voice lowering to a nearer whisper. "Between fear and truth." Elara's pulse raced. She could feel it now, the strange warmth building in her chest, the faint light flickering beneath her skin. The power Lucien spoke of wasn't just a story, it was real. Her voice trembled. "If what you are saying is true, then what happens to me now?" Lucien looked at her, really looked at her, with centuries of longing in his eyes. "You awaken," he said, "and when you do, neither he nor I can control what comes next." Damian stepped in front of her, blocking Lucien's view. His tone hardened. "I don't care what fantasy you spin, vampire. She's under my protection now." Lucien's lip curved into a knowing smile. "Protection or possession?" Damian's eyes flashed with anger, but before he could respond, Lucien's form vanishing into a blur of shadow and smoke, leaving behind only a whisper that brushed against Elara's eye. "Remember who you are." The forest fell silent once more. Only the echo of that haunting whisper remained. Elara turned to Damian, her voice barely audible. He knew things about me, things I never told anyone. Damian's eyes softened for the first time. Then we will find out the truth together, but promise me one thing, don't listen to him again. Elara looked out into the darkness where Lucien had vanished, her heart torn between the man sworn to protect her and the creature who claimed to know her soul. And deep inside, beneath her fear, a voice whispered from within, ancient, powerful, and familiar. The light with her was waking up. Days turned into nights, and nights into restless dream. But no matter how far Elara tried to run from her fate, she couldn't escape them. Lucien and Damian, light and darkness, had become the twin forces pulling at her every thought, every heartbeat. Damian had made a promise to keep her safe. He trained her from dawn till dusk in the hidden sanctuary deep within the woods, an ancient ruin now claimed by the Brotherhood of Shadows. His methods were strict, but his presence was steady. He taught her how to hold a blade, how to listen to silence, how to feel the rhythm of her heartbeat before she struck. "You fight with your fear," he said one morning, gripping her wrist gently as she fumbled her stance. "You need to fight with your light instead." And she did, because when danger neared, something inside her stirred. A pulse of pure energy ran through her veins, glowing faintly beneath her skin like liquid gold. The first time it happened, Damian had stepped back, eyes wide with disbelief. "That powered," he whispered. "It's not a myth after all." But when Damian trained her under sunlight, Lucien ruled her nights. Each time she closed her eyes, she found herself in another world, a place half dream, half memory. Lucien would be there, his figure cloaked in mist and moonlight, eyes full an etching kind of tenderness. He showed her visions, battle fought under crimson skies, a city of glass towers where she stood beside him, her hand in his, both of them crowned in firelight. And always the same words echoed through her mind. "Remember me." At first she tried to fight it. She told herself they were just dreams. But dreams didn't feel this real. She could smell the air, taste the salt of her tears, feel his touch like warmth against her skin. One night, after too many sleepless hours, she couldn't take it anymore. She left the camp quietly, slipping into the forest, guided by an invincible force, or perhaps by her heart. The moon was full that night, silver light spilling through the branches, and there he was, Lucien. He stood by the ancient willow, his coat brushing against the dew-covered grass. The sight of him was both terrifying and heartbreakingly beautiful. Elara's voice trembled as she stepped closer. "Why are you doing this? Why won't you leave me alone?" Lucien turned to her slowly. The look in his eyes was not hunger this time, but sorrow centuries deep. "Because once," he said softly, "long ago you loved me. Before the hunter erased your memory, before you were reborn into this fragile human shell." Her heart raced, her breath catching. "That's not possible." But he stepped closer, and the world seemed to still around them. "Isn't it?" he whispered. "You have seen it, haven't you? The flashes, the dreams, our world, our love, the betrayal that tore us apart. You chose me, Elara, and I have waited lifetimes for you to remember." Elara's throat tightened. The night pulsed with unspoken truth. She wanted to deny it, but deep down something in her stirred. Recognition, pain, longing. I don't know what's real anymore," she said, her voice breaking. Lucien reached out, his fingers brushing the air near her face, but never touching. "What you feel is real. What you were is real. But they made you forget, because your love for me, a creature of darkness, was forbidden." Before she could speak, a familiar voice cut through the silence. Sharp, furious, human. "Step away from her, vampire!" Damian burst into the clearing, his blade gleaming in the moonlight, his eyes blazing with protectiveness and anger. Lucien sighed, not with fear but with pity. "Always the same," he murmured. "You hunters never understand. She doesn't belong to your war. She belonged to no one." Damian shot back, stepping in front of Elara. Lucien's gaze flickered to her once more. "You can't protect her from herself, hunter." And with that he dissolved into mist, fading into night like smoke on the wind. The forest grew silent again. Once only Elara's heartbeat filled the air. Damian turned to her, his tone softer now. "You shouldn't have come out here alone. He's trying to get inside your head." Tears glistened in her eyes. What if he already had? Damian's jaw tightened. He shielded his sword and gently touched her arm. "Then I'll help you fight him, and whatever else you carry inside." She looked up at him, her heart torn in two, because even as she nodded, even as she let Damian lead her back through the forest, her mind whispered another truth she couldn't ignore. Lucien's voice still echoed in her head, calm and haunting. "You loved me once, Elara, and loved like that never dies." And deep inside her chest, the light and darkness began to twist together. Two halves of destiny could no longer outrun. The nights grew heavier as the blood moon drew near. Each evening the sky burned redder, the stars dimmed, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Something ancient was stirring inside Elara, something powerful, something terrifying. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flashes of fire, blood, and wings of light. Her dreams were no longer dreams. They were memories. She had waked drenched in sweat, her heartbeat echoing like drums of war. And when she looked in the mirror, her eyes shimmered faintly, with gold glowing in the dark like twin flames. Damian saw it too. He noticed the flicker in her gaze, the glow beneath her skin, the restlessness that consumed her. "She's losing herself," he murmured to the Brotherhood's elder one morning, his voice low but urgent. "If Lucien turned her, there's no coming back." But the elder only sighed. "If she is Lightborn, then she will not be turned. She will choose what she becomes." That word "choose" haunted Damian more than any prophecy, because every time Elara spoke of Lucien, her voice softened, and every time she trained, her power grew stronger, wilder, harder to control. One night, unable to sleep, she wandered outside the above camp. The air was thick, humming with energy. Above her, the blood moon hung enormous in the sky, painting the world in crimson light. The lake nearby reflected it, a pool of living fire, and standing at its edge was him, Lucien. He looked different tonight, no longer the haunting shadow from her dreams, but almost human. The red light softened his pale skin, and his expression held neither arrogance nor manic, only sorrow. "Elara," he whispered, stepping closer. "You feel it too, don't you? The pull, the awakening." Her voice trembled. "Why are you here?" "To save you," he said. "Before they use you like they used your ancestor. The Brotherhood wants your power. They will drain you, bind you, twist your light into their weapons. But I never will." His word wrapped around her heart like silk and small, dangerous yet warm. "You are lying," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. Lucien smiled faintly. "If I were lying, would I have waited centuries instead of talking you by force?" She looked away, her pulse racing. "Why me?" "Because," he whispered, "your soul remember me, even if your mind doesn't." He reached out his hand, eyes pleading. "Come with me, Elara. Leave their war behind, but what you were born. Be what you were born to be, not their savior, but your own." Before she could answer, a familiar sound broke through the night, the hiss of steel. "Step away from her, vampire!" Damian emerged from the shadow, his blade drawn, gleaming with silver light. His eyes burned with fury and fear. Lucien's hand lowered slowly. "You are too late, hunter. The moon has already chosen. She is not yours to take, Damian snapped, stepping between them. Not now, not ever. Elara's chest tightened. Her chest was pounding so loudly it drowned out the world. The two men stood on either side of her, darkness and light, love and loyalty, and she was the storm between them. Stop, she said, voicing trembling. I'm done being torn apart by your war. Neither moved. Lucien says the Brotherhood will use me. Damian says you will destroy me. Maybe you are both right. Her hands began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter until the light shimmered like liquid fire beneath her skin. The ground trembled, the air vibrated. I'm not your weapon, she cried, tears glinting like glass. And I'm not your salvation, I'm mean. Damian reached for her. Elara, stop! But it was too late. A burst of energy exploded from her palms, blinding raw, unstoppable. The shock wave rippled across the lake, sending waves crashing onto the shore. Trees bent under its force, and both men were thrown backward. Lucien fell to one knee, eyes wide with awe. You have awakened, he whispered. Damian shielded his face, his sword clattering to the ground as the brilliance consumed everything. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause. Elara stood at the center of it all, glowing like the moon itself, her hair lifted by invincible wind, her eyes burning gold, the light outward, not from rage or fear, but from freedom. And when the radiance finally faded, the world was silent again. Lucien knelt in reverence, whispering, The Lightborn rises once more. Damian slowly got to his feet, gazing at her with both awe and despair. Elara, what have you done? She looked down at her hands, still trembling with power, and whispered, I finally stopped running. For the first time in her life, Elara didn't feel haunted. She didn't feel desired or on. She felt whole. Above them, the blood moon began to fade, its curse breaking as dawn's first light crept across the horizon. Elara turned to face the sunrise, her voice steady and strong. I'm not the prey anymore, she said. I'm the balance. And with that, the girl caught between darkness and duty became something more, the light that neither could control. When the light finally faded, silence fell over the forest. The smoke curled in the cold morning air. The trees stood motionless, their leaves trembling, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Elara stood at the center of clearing, the earth around her crushed in a perfect circle, her body glowing faintly with the remnants of her unleashed power. Lucien was on his knees, weak, his once bright red eyes dimming to a soft crimson, his strength like the night was slipping away. Damian, bruised and battered, stood a few feet away, his sword cracked, his armor smeared with ash. Yet his gaze never left Elara, half in awe, half in fear. For a long, fragile moment, none of them spoke. Then Elara broke the silence, her voice quiet but steady. Lucien, she said softly. Damian, her eyes moved between them, between the vampire who had once been her heart and the hunter who had become her shield. Memories that had been buried for centuries were now awake in her mind, flashes of another life, a moonlit castle, forbidden love, a promise whispered in the blood. She remembered everything. Her throat tightened. I remember now, she whispered. Lucien, you were in love once, long ago. Lucien's face softened, his voice a shadow of its former power. Yes, before the curse, before the war, you were the light and I was the shadow, and still you chose me. Elara's eyes filled with tears, but that life is gone. Lucien looked down, his expression breaking, not in anger, but in quiet acceptance. Then my waiting ends here, he said. He stood slowly, unsteady, and turned towards the horizon. The first ray of dawn were breaking through the forest canopy, spilling gold over the battlefield. Lucien, wait! Elara stepped forward, but he only smiled, a sad, gentle smile that carried centuries of love and regret. For you, he said softly, it was always worth it. Then he stepped into the sunlight. The rays touched his pale skin, and smoke began to rise. His flesh shimmered like silver dust in the light. Yet he didn't scream. He didn't run. He simply stood there, eyes fixed on Elara, until his form dissolved into a swirl of ash carried away by the morning breeze. And just like that, the vampire who had waited lifetime for her was gone. Elara stood frozen, watching the ashes scatter across the sky. A part of her heart went with them, the part that once belonged to another era, another soul. Behind her, Damian stepped forward and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You did the right thing, he said quietly. Elara turned her head slightly, her eyes still glimmering with power and sorrow. No, Damian, she said, her voice heavy with truth. I did the necessary thing. There is a difference. He looked at her for a long moment, understanding more in her silence than her words. She wasn't celebrating victory. She was mourning what it had cost. Damian lowered his sword, the metal scraping softly against the hearth. So, what now? Elara looked toward the rising sun, where the last traces of the blood moon were fading into pale light. Her golden hair caught the dawn, her eyes reflecting its warmth. Now, she said, I stopped running and start leading. Damian frowned slightly. Leading what? The world between, she answered. The light and the dark, the hunter and the hunted, the balance that everyone forgot. She took a deep breath, feeling the power settle within her. Not dragging this time, but calm and certain. The energy that once threatened to destroy her now flowed through her veins like steady fire. The forest began to stir again. Birds called from distant branches. The mist rolled back from the trees. Life, fragile and pure, returned. Elara stepped forward, the earth healing beneath her bare feet. Each step left behind faint traces of light that faded slowly into the soil. She turned back to Damian one last time. Tell the Brotherhood, she said. The war between dark and light ends with me. Damian nodded, though his eyes still carried question. And what about us? Elara smiled faintly, the kind of smile that held both warmth and distance. You will always be part of my story, she said, but I have to write the rest alone. And with that, she walked toward the horizon. The golden light wrapped around her like a cloak. Her shadow followed her, but this time it didn't lag behind. It moved with her, step for step, perfectly balanced. In that union of shadow and shine, something new was born, not vampire, not hunter, not savior, but legend. The legend of a girl, one desired by two powerful forces, yet claimed by none. A girl who chose not love, nor duty, but destiny, her own. As she vanished into the morning light, her voice seemed to linger on the wind, calm, resolved, eternal. I am the dawn between darkness and light. I am not the hunted. I am not the prize. I am the balance. And so the story of Elara, the girl desired by two, became the tale of a woman who chose herself, and in doing so, changed the fate of both worlds forever.